There has been a lot of confusion around this Ronald Green case. The facts and everything surrounding the case is just inconsistent. What really happened that night? I mean, some say it's being kept secret. Some say it was a car crash. Some say he died of restricted breathing, stun guns. Some say it was a torture and murder. The cops are saying he died in the car crash and his cocaine usage. But the worst news of all is hearing that these officers are covering up something and that there is a cover up going on in the state police and that the police are in on this and they're all lying about it. So I actually took it upon myself to visit the legislator's website and review all of the testimony from everyone that was involved with the case. If you want to follow this website at the top, you can navigate over to the special committee and find all the videos from the special committee hearings. But I'll warn you, I did watch probably 40 hours worth of material to come up with a couple of interesting findings that have not been covered in the news, ironically. So, some of the main findings that are not found in the media right now are more lies that were told from inside the state police. And I say more lies because there's some accusations that lies were being told. Now, those officers that are being accused are pleading not guilty and they're claiming they're innocent. I'm actually going to get into each of these arguments and we're going to break that apart and see exactly what they're being accused of and why they think they're innocent. But there were some more lies that were being told inside of the state police that I cannot believe the media has not covered this. This is actually really interesting. There was also an alternative motive for the indictment. And what I mean by that is typically an indictment occurs whenever a district attorney feels that laws have been broken. But there's actually an alternative motive as to why these officers were indicted. And finally, there's been a lack of an analysis of the actual cause of death. So let's go ahead and get started with some of the findings that I found. So, whenever inquest death occurs with the Louisiana State Police, two things happen immediately. One is an internal affairs investigation. Another is a criminal investigation. So these are two different types of investigations. Internal affairs actually goes and gets all the evidence and talks to witnesses and writes reports, and they turn their findings back into the state police. They actually give it to some of the decision makers. So that would be people like the colonel, and they're going to meet with some committee and decide whether or not policy was broken within the state police. Okay, now that's a little bit different than if laws are broken. So if a trooper actually breaks a law, this internal affairs is not going to be the one that is going to come after them. It's actually going to be your criminal investigators. So the criminal investigators do a very similar job. They are gathering evidence and they are talking to witnesses and they are writing a report as to what happened. Now, instead of turning this over to the Louisiana State Police, obviously you can see here, they actually give their files and all of their evidence over to the district attorney. So let's see where these investigations went wrong. In this criminal case, there was this investigator. His name is Albert Paxton. And Albert Paxton is one of the investigators who downloaded all of the videos and is responsible for handing over the case file over to the district attorney to allow the district attorney to review the evidence and see if any laws are broken. So Albert's job is just to document everything, download everything, and get the evidence to the district attorney. Now, Albert Paxton gathered all of that evidence and actually did submit this over to the district attorney just a couple of months after the incident occurred. And then 2 years later pass, and Albert begins making these claims that he just found out about a video that was left out of his criminal report. He said he was missing Lieutenant Clary's body worn camera whenever he was gathering evidence. And before he gave it over to the district attorney, he did not have Lieutenant Clary's video. So Albert gives a couple of reasons as to why he didn't have the video. Number one, he said that Lieutenant Clary actually hid the video from him. Watch here as Albert testifies that.
But as far as him hiding video, it wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. He lied about it.
Now, Louisiana State Police actually took this accusation extremely serious. They actually launched two separate internal affairs investigations into Clary specifically to see if this was true. The findings from these investigations into Clary's hiding of the video was not sustained, meaning Clary was found innocent. There was no evidence to support Paxton's accusations.
When did y'all start an IA investigation of John Clary?
That would have been when the question about the video being provided to the criminal investigators was known. That investigation was after my time in internal affairs, but that investigation was a not sustained finding.
Then after that, the FBI actually came in and redid all of the interviews, redid the entire investigation into Clary to see if Clary hid these videos. Because if you recall, there was news media about Lieutenant Clary hiding these videos. So the FBI came in, did their investigations, and much like the internal affairs investigators, they didn't find anything that supported this claim from Albert Paxton. And here's some actual testimony stating that Clary did exactly what he should have done.
Lots of attention has been given to Lieutenant Clary's body-worn camera video, the fact that he, or what's been alleged that he hid the video. But I'll submit to you that isn't even remotely accurate. The video was properly labeled and uploaded to evidence.com. It's a video repository on the same morning of Mr. Green's death. And maybe, just maybe on our part, Criminal Investigation Division, that maybe we just didn't do a good job at looking for it, but it was there.
So now that we know Clary did not hide the video and is not responsible for Paxton's mistake, Paxton then claims that he did not have access to the videos. He said he tried to get into evidence.com and download it, but he didn't have access to it. Watch here as he testifies.
Okay, so you didn't have access
I didn't know. Ma'am.
on that Axon.
No, ma'am.
Somebody in your role, should you have had, and I'm gonna just use the word unfettered access or free access to review those videos as part of your investigation or part of your job duties?
I mean, I think it would help. I mean, they should have it.
All right, but they didn't.
No, sir.
Now, this testimony was yet another lie. Paxton did indeed have access to it, and he downloaded the video. Here's some other testimony that actually quotes some specific documentation showing where he had access to evidence.com and downloaded the files.
I can tell you this, that Albert Paxton did access evidence.com. It was in July of 2019, which was the month prior to him actually submitting the case file to the district attorney's office. So that was not necessarily an accurate statement, and we can show that by way of audit trail. Ma'am, what I'm telling you is that he had access, he was given access, and if he didn't have access, he could have certainly requested access, and we can show that he was in the system.
And you're telling me he could log on and he could search for Lieutenant Clary's video?
He could have.
He could have.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the only thing that I can tell you is I'm looking at an audit trail with his name on it.
And we do have people, I think, that could speak to that, because I'm not about to try and dissect what this report says. But to Colonel Van Buren's point, we have paperwork that shows that he, Sergeant Paxton, had on July 22nd at 1:30 p.m. had granted access via myevidence.com. It's right here on the document, ma'am.
Paxton is 0 for 2 right now. He has told 2 lies, and he has been caught in both of these lies. He actually changes his story a 3rd time. And now he says that Captain Peters threatened him and said he cannot use the video, and he does not want Albert Paxton to turn the video over to the district attorney. And Paxton said that now this is the reason why the Clary video did not make it over to the district attorney.
Okay, he said if anybody gets arrested as a result of this investigation, there's going to be issues with patrol and BOI.
And that statement was made to you?
To me, yes, ma'am.
Did you take that as a threat?
Well, yeah, yes, ma'am, I did.
Now, although Paxton has already been caught in 2 lies, and now he's changed his story a 3rd time, let's go ahead and entertain this accusation as well. Here's an organizational chart of the Louisiana State Police. You'll notice Peters is over here on the right. He is the captain of Troop F. Peters works in the patrol. Paxton is actually over here on a completely different chain of command. Paxton is a criminal investigator. So Peters is not even in Paxton's chain of command. Therefore, how could Peters really make a threat to Albert Paxton? It just doesn't make any sense. And the last point I want to make about Paxton's story is Paxton says this video is being hid from him for 2 years. Okay, so some of the other people in the state police actually saw and used the video just weeks after the incident. So let's pull this organizational chart back up, and I'm going to highlight everyone that said that they saw the video. And this is just weeks after the incident. This is not 2 years after the incident.
I saw Scott Davis's name on it, our internal affairs investigators.
Did Colonel Reeves see the video?
Yes, sir.
Any other top brass that you're aware saw the video?
Chief Brown would have, Major Kane would have.
Okay, so give me the list again. That who was in the room, as you recall?
Colonel Reeves,
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Noel, Colonel White, Colonel Barnum. And I'm sorry, I forgot. I think Starnes may have been there. Colonel Starnes. How many seconds? And legal. I think legal affairs.
You said Faye Morris,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Saw him from during the presentation in the senior staff meeting.
Who was part of that committee?
Our disciplinary review committee is senior staff.
And senior staff at that time would have been who?
It would have been Colonel Reeves, Colonel Brown, myself, Lieutenant Colonel White, Lieutenant Colonel Oliphant, Lieutenant Colonel Starnes.
I'm sorry, White. Who did you say after that? Was that Oliphant?
Yes, ma'am.
Oliphant. Okay, who else?
Lieutenant Colonel Starnes and Miss Faye from legal.
Faye Morrison.
Yes, ma'am.
So when I tell you there were a lot of lies that I found, I was so shocked that no one has reported on Albert Paxton's lies. He made up 3 different lies, and these lies actually resulted in indictments for Clary and Peters. But in conclusion, Clary did indeed upload and properly label and everything his video correctly. Unfortunately, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, with Albert Paxton being a reason to push some of the blame off on Albert Paxton's own mistake. Clary didn't make the mistake. Paxton did. Peters did not threaten Paxton. Paxton made a mistake and did not own up to it. Now, personally, the only thing I can think that could have happened is Paxton deleted the video after he watched it and saw how insignificant it was. When I say insignificant, you can actually get on YouTube right now and go and watch the Clary video. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to waste a good 10 minutes of your time. Because when Lieutenant Clary shows up, Ronald Green was already in handcuffs and in custody. All of the wrestling and struggling was already done. It was over with by the time Lieutenant Clary got there. So personally, I think Albert Paxton probably saw that and thought it was just a waste of time to watch that and deleted it out of his report and sent it over to the district attorney. And then 2 years later, he's making all of these claims. Okay, before we move on to Ronald Green's death, I want to talk about that other finding, which was one of the alternative motives that the Attorney General had whenever he was proceeding with these indictments. So why would the District Attorney, John Belton, proceed with these charges if he already knows that Albert Paxton lies? Because after all, his main witness in the indictment trial was Albert Paxton. So why would he proceed with that if he probably has already seen all of the testimony that I have seen and reviewed all of the material and knows that Clary submitted it and that there was no way that Peters could have or would have threatened him? Well, the first motive for an indictment is you truly believe that there is a crime being broken. And I point that out because the district attorney would only proceed with a charge if he believed that there was a crime that was broken, right? Well, watch this testimony. Now, keep in mind, this testimony is about a meeting that occurred after the district attorney received the case file, and they were talking with him about some of the charges that the district attorney saw.
Lieutenant Colonel Cameron, you said in your statement that you emailed to us that you attended the meeting on May 20th, 2021 with Colonel Davis and Lieutenant Colonel Kane with DA Belton?
Yes, sir.
So you said in your response to that, it says, during this meeting with DA Belton and LSP staff, we had a very deliberate discussion in reference to Lieutenant Clary's video and the actions observed by the officers on the scene and whether or not additional charges were warranted. What do you mean by that when you said you had a very deliberate discussion?
Yeah, and I've heard and watched some of the testimony prior to me getting here today, and I know that there's been some discussion and questioning brought up as to what was happening in that meeting. As you see, I noted that I was called and invited with Colonel Davis and the people that were listed to go and review and watch the video that had now been delivered to the DA and that had now been part of the supplemental report by Sergeant Paxton. What I mean by that is we were at a table in the DA's office discussing the video that was being shown, and there was conversations on what everybody saw and what was your interpretation of what was being shown here.
And could you tell me what was the opinion of the people sitting at that table about whether or not there should be charges?
Yeah, we walked away that we didn't see in our opinion that there were charges based on the evidence that we were looking at, in particular to the video that they were showing us.
So essentially, the district attorney looked at all of the evidence, did not see anything, and then a couple of years later down the road, he picks the case back up and he says, hey, you know what? I'm going to proceed with some charges with this. Even though I didn't originally see anything, now I'm starting to see something. And he tries to say that it's because he didn't know about the Clary video, but that's a lie. Watch as he testifies, saying that he has no knowledge of the Clary video for the first couple of years.
No one gave you that Clary video, is that accurate?
That is correct.
And so that was withheld from you?
I did not receive it until, I did not know anything about it. I received a file on August 20th, 2019, and I think that video surfaced sometime in 2020.
However, here's some more testimony saying that he watched the Clary video with the family just a couple of weeks after the incident.
I think you said earlier that DA Belton was the one who presented the video to the family. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so he presented, including the Clary video, to the family in whenever it's September or October?
I recall that being a part of the presentation.
Okay. And DA Belton presented that video to the family at the time, correct?
Correct.
I did not know anything about it.
We have an email from Phaedra Parks, and I read the email, and she attached some documents that's been provided to the members of the committee. It says, I was one of the attorneys in the room on October 14, 2020, representing the Green family. I was in the room the entire time and reviewed all the tapes, audio, and body cam footage. I've attached my notes from the meeting, which detail and confirm that we viewed Lieutenant Clario's audio, video, body cam during that meeting.
I did not know anything about it.
I know that video was shown by District Attorney Belton to the family on the date that we met with the family and the attorneys.
In other words, District Attorney John Belton saw all of the evidence, including the Clary video, just a couple of weeks after the incident occurred. Did not see that any charges were warranted, and then a few years down the road, he picks the case back up and decides to proceed with charges. Only this time, because it's been so long, he can only charge these troopers with felonies. He can't charge them with any misdemeanors. So what is another motive for someone to proceed with charges? Well, it was probably politically motivated. About 2.5 years after the incident occurred, aka the same time he decided to pick the case back up, John Belton announced that he was running for Attorney General. And right after he made that announcement, he actually met with members of the Congressional Black Caucus.
You texted Matthew Blocks, offering answering questions from the Black Caucus. Do you recall that?
If I texted him, I'm sure I did. Yes.
And I can only assume that they strong-armed him into proceeding with some indictments because, as we just saw, John Belton did not even believe that there were charges on any of these guys. So why would District Attorney Belton proceed with these charges? I don't know, but it seems like there's some political pressure that's going on, or he has some anti-police political agenda that he's trying to push. So, in conclusion, we have charges on obstruction of justice that are not justified. We have a district attorney that has proceeded with a very malicious prosecution, probably motivated by political influence. So, stay tuned for another video on the analysis of the person who's actually responsible for Ronald Green's death. It might actually surprise you.